It's 6 o'clock on Monday, the 9th of December, 2019. Good evening and thank you for tuning in to the English edition of Ora News. My name is Christopher, bringing you the only update of the local Albanian news, translated into English. The prosecution of Durrës has begun the interrogation of persons involved in the investigation of abuses following the November 26th earthquake. RTV Ora News learns that after the first phase of the seizure of about 200 files, 30 people, including builders, engineers, and architects, were summoned and questioned by investigators. Priority in this phase of the investigation is the sequestration of construction files that caused the casualties, along with the files of buildings identified as having interference in the structure. It is understood that investigations are conducted starting from the obtaining of a permit all the way to the companies that have completed works of construction of additional floors or on the implementation of projects in the 6 buildings. The findings on the situation before November 26 are also being reviewed. Officials who have issued signatures and stamps on collapsed and damaged buildings have also been questioned. A source from the investigation team told Ora News that investigations are proceeding at a very fast pace and that the result is only a matter of days away. Investigations have also begun in Kruja, the files being divided into 3 groups. The first of the files are for the dwellings in Thumana, where 24 people were killed. Residents were questioned about the findings after the July earthquake in 2018 and the reasons that led them to return to home. The second are the files with damaged dwellings, where architects and engineers are being questioned, and anyone else who has interviewed on the first floors of the old buildings are also being identified. The third group is in Tirana, where documentation for 770 buildings is being reviewed, with around 400 being constructed prior to 1990. For all of these cases, documents have been obtained from the Tirana municipality, and field verifications are ongoing. Red tape now covers the entrance of the hospital in Lach because of serious damage it received from the November 26 earthquake, posing a risk to the patients and doctors. With the exception of emergencies, services have been put on standby and medical staff have been transferred to the hospital in Leja. An emergency tent is being raised in front of the hospital to cope with the emergency situation in the municipality of Corbin, while authorities intend that the ambulance services are faced with the addition of emergency teams in the field. Experts estimate that damage to the Ilachi hospital does not pose a risk to the building, but either way, it will not open without reconstruction. Families in Durrës have chosen to escape the fear and panic of the November 26 earthquake by starting a new life in the capital. The real estate agent Ilda Zaloshnia told Ora News that during the past 2 weeks, there have been a growing trend in demand for citizens of Durrës seeking rental homes in Tirana. Those living in the capital who want to leave their buildings also have demanded changes. Zaloshnia says rental prices continue to have an upward trend, but not because of the earthquake, and that prices are high for those who are looking for apartments. Experts say the situation is now normalizing and it will take some time to figure out whether the relocation of citizens comes as an emotional or simply logical decision. A team of Italian doctors from the city of Florence are set in Leja to combat the health emergencies of earthquake-affected residents. Together with the ambulance, they will look at a healthy, movable center in rural areas where residents continue to stay in tents. Ermini Marco, the head of the group of doctors, says that they have come to serve to the Albanians at a difficult moment. We came here to help those affected by the earthquake. We will mainly operate in the rural areas of Leja, where the need for health services is greater. We will stay here until this situation passes, says Marco. The Italian team is joined by Vat Marashi, an Albanian doctor living in Florence. He says thanks to the program, people with health problems will be sent for help outside of Albania. We often come into contact with cases that are serious or that need treatment abroad, and our authorities in the Tuscany region of Italy can often help people in need, said Dr. Marashi. The mayor of Leja, Pierre Nieru, says this team is a great help for the residents of the rural areas at this moment of crisis. We will make intensive visits. They will give prescriptions and give medications. This is actually a timely service, and I thank them very much, said Pierre Nieru. The movable health center has 2 nurses and provides medical aid and basic medications. According to former Socialist Prime Minister Pandeli Maiko, the country is in an emergency situation and must have a genuine plan to help the citizens affected by the earthquake. Edi Rama and even the Minister for Diaspora is convinced that the government needs the Democratic Party to overcome the situation. It's not just talking about a picture. It is very important even for traumatized people that all parties working in solidarity. Therefore, under these conditions, when 3 earthquakes hit Albania within a year, it is necessary for the policy to change slightly if possible, said Michael. Michael underlines that managing the situation will take time and it will require more finances so the needs of support of all the political actors in the country. It is not a story that will be finished within a few months. It will take a relatively long time. It will take enormous expenses to overcome the damages of 3 earthquakes. Very specialized work is required, and I think what happened is a good lesson for all Albanian institutions, expressed Michael. Michael calls on politics not to exploit the disaster that has absorbed the country for political interests. This story should not be used for political profits. I do not mean to say what the government is doing is the smartest thing that could be done in these moments, but one thing I say with conviction, the government is doing what it can beyond its financial opportunities, said Michael. Pandeli Michael underlined that all assistance coming from international parties is welcomed by our country, although so far there is still no bill of damages caused by the November 26 earthquake that caused 51 casualties, dozens of injuries, and many residents. Greece says it has a strategic priority to begin accession talks with Albania and Northern Macedonia. Hellenic Foreign Minister Nikos Dendias kicked off the week by organizing a working breakfast in Brussels with Albanian counterpart Ken Sakai and Nikola Dimitrov of Northern Macedonia. Dendias is also expected to meet with the Dutch and French foreign ministers this week in an effort to persuade them to begin accession talks with the 2 Western Balkan countries ahead of a meeting of EU leaders in Zagreb in May of next year. The meeting was also attended by Commissioner for Northern European Neighborhood and Policy and Enlargement Negotiations, Oliver Varhelyi, who reiterated the Commission's position to open negotiations next spring. We had a very constructive meeting, and now we can move forward by correcting the mistake that was made in October. EU Commission stands by the recommendation to open accession talks with both countries next spring, the Commissioner said. In an interview with Greek media, the Greek diplomat warned of the reopening of pending issues with Tirana as soon as the post-earthquake situation calmed down. Dendias did not directly address any concrete issues, but media say the issue about the maritime agreement, which has been suspended due to a change of government in Athens. Greece has also begun preparations for 2 important meetings, the first in February with the participation of Greece, Bulgaria, Albania, and North Macedonia. A meeting will be held in Thessaloniki, as well as a summit between the European Union and the Western Balkans, which according to Greek media will be held at the beginning of the next year. And that's the news across the country today. Thank you for watching our English edition this evening, and be sure to join us again every Monday to Saturday at 6 p.m. for the latest news from Albania. Once again, on behalf of Ora News, thank you and good night.